Hi, this is Patrick Rollins with YoChicago, and I'm here with Adrian Holovaty. He founded ChicagoCrime.org in 2005, and then just a couple weeks ago, your new venture went live.
Yeah,
Was
1 week
every
ago.
block? Okay. And we're actually sitting down with you kind of an auspicious time because just in the last couple of days, Chicago Crime, it arced and now it's off. It's going to be offline and supplanted by every block.
Yeah, it's sort of a case of crazy timing. The web host essentially is migrating servers, and I decided it's going to be too much of a hassle to migrate, so it's just graduated and retired to every block.
Gotcha. And so I guess every block is going to provide the exact same service as Chicago Crime.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
More, right?
Exactly. It's sort of like ChicagoCrime.org on steroids. It's more than just crime and more than just Chicago. So restaurant inspections, business licenses, street closures, we geocode local news, and then we got a bunch of kind of crazy stuff like Flickr photos and Craigslist misconnections and everything that's everything's related geographically, so you can put in an address or zip code or neighborhood and see all the stuff that's relevant to you within a very tight radius of your block.
Yeah.
Hence the name.
Every block. So your Chicago Crime was heralded as one of the first Google Maps mashups. Can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of that project and why you chose Chicago and how you got it all off the ground?
Well, I chose Chicago because that's where I live.
Okay.
And it happens to be the greatest city in the world.
That's right.
And so that came about when I found the Chicago Police Department's Citizen ICAM site. And I was clicking around and realized, wow, this is a lot of very interesting data, but it would be great if you could browse it instead of just search it. So they've since migrated to a different system called ClearPath.
Okay.
And it's still sort of the same paradigm of searching, so you put in an address, you can see all the stuff around that address, but I thought it would be really cool and useful if you could just sort of see all the murders, or see everything in a neighborhood, or see everything that happened on a particular day, or in a particular hour. And so I set about writing a program that grabbed all that public data from their site and reinterpreted it as ChicagoCrime.org.
It seems like that came along at an interesting time, given the rise of big media companies and kind of a refocusing on, I guess the term's hyper-local news that's relevant just to a particular neighborhood or even block. How has traffic and readers responded to that over the years?
Very, very well. For ChicagoCrime.org, it's been sort of a special case because the interest in it comes from all over. There's Chicago residents, obviously, and even in that group there are different sub-audiences. There's the people who are moving to a different neighborhood or moving to the city. There's people who live in the city and just want to keep track of the crime near them. There's the sort of advocates for people who go to block club meetings and neighborhood group meetings and actually bring out printouts of ChicagoCrime.org and say, hey, there's been a lot of muggings at this particular street corner at night, why don't we install a better, brighter lights there.
Cool, so it helped with urban planning and all sorts of good neighborhood
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And then, so that's the Chicago audience, then there's all the geek audience
Yeah.
that like it for the maps and all that stuff.
I actually, when I was moving to Chicago, that was the first site I went to check
cool.
out intersections and stuff. And at the time, the only people I knew in Chicago were in Wicker Park, so I was plugging in a lot of addresses there. And so back to every block, it does pretty much everything Chicago Crime did. And how's it going to grow? Is it going to grow as you add more sites to the feed, or?
So I hate to sound like a lame business person, but it's going to grow horizontally and vertically. So we're going to add more cities to the mix. So we launched in Chicago, New York, San Francisco. We're going to add more cities in that direction. But also for every city that we have, we're going to add more data sources. And I would say that for Chicago, we're only at 10%.
Really?
There's so much stuff out there that's just pure gold that we want to add to the site.
Okay.
And that could mean more neighborhood blogs, more news sources, because there's still we don't even index the Daily Southtown.
Really?
So all sorts of other sources, and all sorts of other public records. So yeah, sort of in both directions.
What sort of timeline should we look at, if we're checking the site looking for coverage to change?
It's like a daily thing.
Really?
Like,
Okay.
we are super nimble. A lot of people were asking for email alerts, so we just did it.
Yeah.
Like, it took like 2 hours to set it up. We're really, really fast. We're only 4 people. Got that startup vibe,
Yeah.
Can do
Electricity in
very
the
quickly.
air, right?
Totally.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll add sources this week. Check back.
We should mention YoChicago is already one of their sources.
It's one of the premier sources because you guys are so good about writing about specific locations, obviously. So
Cool.
we like that.
Awesome. Are you doing this full time?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a full time. It's funded by a grant, a 2-year grant.
Cool.
So that was able to, give us the resources that we need, like in terms of server space and salaries and whatever other costs there are.
Awesome.
It's a lot better than ChicagoCrime.org, which was just this side project that I did in my spare time and never, had any. It was all my own money being poured into the servers and stuff.
Any other aspects of Google Maps or web-based tools that you're kind of looking at for the next venture?
Well, the interesting thing about our maps is that we did them on our own.
Oh, really?
So on every block we don't use Google Maps for several reasons. The biggest reason is that Google Maps are really, really good for driving directions and wayfinding. So like you go to Google Maps and you type in an address and usually your goal is to orient yourself.
Certainly.
But if we're using it to display data, a lot of the stuff on the maps gets in the way, like whether it's a one-way street or like downtown here, the building footprints and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just sort of was a little too messy. So we made our own maps.
Wow.
And they're, if I may say, they're pretty gorgeous.
That's quite the venture right there.
Yeah, it's you don't hear a lot of websites doing that.
Yeah, you definitely don't.